What if I told you that right now it's possible to have S3 mounted as a file system? That's a great new feature from AWS, and I'm recording this video on 8th of April 2026, and this dropped on 7th, so just the day before. And now we will do a very quick walkthrough and see how it works and how to configure that. All right, so we are logged into AWS console, and first of all, we will navigate to S3. So let's create ourselves a bucket, which will be used then as our file system. So I will create a general purpose bucket here, global namespace, nothing changes here. So let's call it maybe briefly test files, and the rest I will leave as is. We will need to make one modification, but AWS will let us know about it. So let's create a bucket. And as we have our bucket, let's navigate back to S3, and here are very new nice tab files and a file system. So we will create a file system out of our S3 bucket. Underneath it works as a network file system, so the NFS. So let's do a create file system. Here we need to choose the bucket that we want to use. So I will take this one that we created, and you can see first of all, AWS says something that I mentioned before. It actually requires bucket versioning, but it's just a one click away. So as it is a network file system, we need to have it in a VPC. So I will use a default one, and I will create this file system. It will take a moment, because if we will get back here to the file systems, you will see that actually it's in creating state. And if you were using, for example, EFS and so on, and as I mentioned, it's a network one, it will actually be creating also some mount targets in different availability zones of this region, which I meant currently, so in Europe. So in the meantime, while we wait for that, let's navigate to EC2, because what we will try to achieve actually today is to mount an S3 bucket through the file system to our EC2 instance. So let's do a launch instance. I will do maybe some files S3, let's call it this way. I will leave Amazon Linux, we will leave everything the same. We will proceed without the keeper, but we will create a security group and allow port 22, because we actually need to mount it. So we need to have access to the instance. We will use that in the simplest manner. So EC2 instance connect. So let's launch this instance and proceed without the keeper. And our instance is launching. In the meantime, let's see how our file system looks like. Our system is available, but probably mount targets, are creating. So now we will need to wait for those file systems to be created. So actually those mount targets. In the meantime, we can connect to our EC2. So let's go here, instance connect. Let's go with the EC2 instance connect. Let's click connect, and we should be able to connect just in a moment. So we are in our shell of our EC2 Linux. If I will do df-h and see the mount points, I don't see anything here, but actually it will be populated with this S3 in a moment. So what we can do in the meantime, actually, while it's creating that, as it is a file system, and as it needs some permissions to S3 and some other stuff regarding the network, we actually need to attach a role to that instance. So we will do that in the meantime. You can see right now, IAM role is blank. So we will go here to the security, and we will modify IAM role, and we will create a new IAM role just for that. And we will use one of the existing policies. We don't need those two, but we will actually need some kind of a policy. And AWS to the rescue, there are already S3 file specific policies. And just for the sake of argument and easy to work, we will do a client, or actually let's do S3 files full access. You can see it gives some EC2 stuff because we need to have some network, VPC and so on stuff, and some bucket permissions, and then some event bridge and so on. So let's actually take this policy and let's just attach it. So let's take it and let's scroll down to create a role. Let's call it maybe S3 files access, something like that. Let's create that role and update IAM role. So from the role perspective, everything should be fine, but there will be also a layer of network, because if we will go back here, and they are still probably creating, but you can see right away, and this is something like it works with the network, right? So the same would be, for example, for the EFS. There are security groups attached to that. And by default, as I am in the default VPC, this is actually a default security group that allows all protocols or port ranges, but from a particular security group, this default one. If you would like to make this S3 files work, you would need to be able in the security groups to allow for the access to the port 2049. It's the port for NFS, but actually we will take this security group as it allows for all to all, just for the sake of argument, and we will just attach this security group to that EC2 instance so we can fulfill this source requirement of this particular security group. So let's get back to our EC2. Let's one more time go to action to security, and instead of modify IAM roles, we will do change security groups, and we will add that default security group B0B. So the same B0B that's attached to this mount targets. And where am I? I'm here. So we will do that, and we will add this security group, and we will click save. If you wouldn't do the first part, so the role, then you would bump into some permissions issues when we will be mounting that as a file system. And if you wouldn't do the second part, so the security group, then actually it would also time out while mounting. So as we had some time while the mount targets were creating, we solved those issues out. Now we can see the mount target is in available state. So let's do attach to an EC2 instance, and we will choose the instance type and the local mount path you can see. And now we would need to go to our instance, use Cloud Share or something else, but we are already connected, right? Using EC2 instance connect, so we don't need to do the keys. We don't need to do that. We actually need to start from the step 6, because if we will start actually maybe with a create new folder. So step 7, I will show you why the step 6 is necessary. So first of all, let's create a folder for our mount, right? And now if we will go back here and I would like to use this command for the mount, you can see the fields are already pre-populated with a particular ID and this particular folder that we did, right? And it was being taken from this local mount path. So if I will try to run it right now, I will get that this is an unknown file type. So I need to install this utility helper. That's why the step 6 is also important. So let's install that. That should take like 10 to 15 seconds at most. So let's wait for that. And then we will be able to run this mount again and then verify that file system was mounted. So we should be able to list the files, but actually we don't have anything in the bucket. All right, so let's get back to our sudo mount. Let's see if it will work. And we waiting. Let's see. Oh, it's connected. So it took some time because it's a network, right? So S3 file systems, let's do ls here. We will probably not have anything here more than like a lost plus found. So file system thing. So let's try to create some kind of a file here, then we will see if it's in the bucket, and then maybe we'll try to do it the other way. So actually upload something to the bucket and see it here. So let's do a simple sudo. I mounted that as a root, right? So I need to prepend that with sudo. So let's do sudo touch. So maybe some kind of a test txt, and let's maybe just for the sake of argument do some kind of a text here. This is a test of S3 files. Let's save that. Let's write that up. If I will do ls, I have this file here. If I will do cat, I have this file here. If we will, let's close all of that. We will not need that anymore. Let's get back to S3. Let's get back to the buckets. Let's do briefly test the bucket and let's refresh that page. It can take a little bit of time for that to populate here in the console, but in the meantime, let's maybe go and I will create some kind of a screenshot and we will get back to our Google Chrome. Let's refresh that, still no file, but let's maybe upload something and let's add files. Let's do this screenshot and let's upload this screenshot to the bucket, 5 megs of a screenshot. And now let's actually go the other way for a moment and do an ls one more time. And hey, you can see our screenshot is here. It weighs around 5 megs. It's this screenshot that I just did from the OS X and uploaded that to the bucket. So we can see from this approach, it works. Let's wait a moment. And hey, I refreshed that. We have a test.txt, which was created, if you remember, inside of our EC2. So let's actually open that and see how it looks. And hey, this is a test of S3 files, so exactly what we wrote. So in this particular example, I was able to show you how it works both ways. So we connected that to the instance, kept in mind the permissions, kept in mind the network, so the security groups. And now maybe just for the sake of argument, as usual, some kind of a cleanup, right? Let's see how many resources and how many steps we will need to take in order to destroy all of that. So first of all, I will terminate the instance and then we will go to S3. As usual, I will not be able to delete a bucket that has something in it. So first of all, cleanup of a bucket, right? Permanently delete. Let's empty the bucket. And now let's go back to our bucket. Let's delete that bucket. So briefly test files. Let's see if I will be able to delete it. Actually, unexpected error, API response. Bucket has an S3 file system attached. It cannot be deleted. So let's go to file systems. Let's try to delete, but I assume that, yeah, we will need to firstly delete the mount target and the access point. So let's go here. Let's actually start deleting those mount targets. As I mentioned, it spanned across 3 AZs. So let's do confirm. Let's do another confirm. And let's do another confirm. And then let's move to access points. Let's delete the access point. Now we should be able to get back to the file, deleting the file system itself. And still our errors are gone right after the refreshment. So now let's confirm deletion of file system. And now finally, we should be able to get back to the bucket and be able to delete the bucket itself. So briefly test files, delete bucket, and hey, bucket is deleted. No file system present, no EC2s present. So we cleaned up after ourselves. And that will be it. It's a very high level overview in the first day, actually, how it works. So maybe there will be some changes in the console by the time you watch this video. Maybe there will be some changes to this delete functionality and so on. But right now it looks this way. And for sure, the permissions and some network perspective, security groups, and so on will stay. So you need to keep in mind. But you can see it's a quite nice addition and quite nice feature that we can mount our S3 as a normal file system to, for example, our EC2s or maybe our Lambdas or something else. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching that walkthrough with me, and see you in some new videos.